Awesome. Okay, so we'll have more people coming on. Once again, this is episode number 50. So this is all kind of going into applications with quantum computing, in specific neuroimaging, these neuroradiology, these types of things that you can do with quantum sensing, computing, networking, and quantum technologies. Now, as of a couple years ago, I'm going to go over some papers. Machine learning, deep learning, AI has really established itself, especially with big data sets. So this is the everything that's going to be covered today. So the literature reviews, and then in specific, so we've talked about medical image processing, so the image formation part, and then a quantum advantage more with like computing, these types of things. So this is, imaging with quantum. So this I'll cover just a little bit. So we've looked at this before, but this is the electromagnetic spectrum. And basically we'll talk a little bit about, this is red, orange, yellow, green, blue. So on the left is high, on the right is lower energy. So it's just a good thing to have. And then you have milli, micro, nano, as far as the scale with these things. Now, a lot of these abbreviations, you'll see, PSP, CBD, and, Alzheimer's, AD. So some of these things pop up and I'll talk about them, but you can refer back to these, in the pitch deck. And this is basically an overview again. So basically you have a revised view of amyloid beta and then tau tangles, with microglia, neurons, astrocytes, oligodendrocytes. And it's kind of, it's not just one thing's happened. And actually with Alzheimer's research within the past week, they found that, or they believe that it's actually an autoimmune disease. So I believe that's the first time that was kind of concluded, where you have this amyloid beta plaque as an antiseptic, and it's actually affecting, all these other things, basically similar to like multiple sclerosis or rheumatoid arthritis. So we'll have to see if that holds up as well. So we still got more people coming on here. So as you can see, so this next one, so you can't underestimate AI. So I'd like to open this up after these next couple of slides, just basically because AI is sets of algorithms that, is proven to be, like human intelligence, or sometimes even more. Now in this field, this is from 2020, this developments in AI and machine learning, is that they found that, radiologists are collaborating with AI scientists for research, and that deep learning in specific is for huge quantities of training databases. Now, with all this stuff, it's assumed that it's on conventional hardware, very good, but it's able to handle, different aspects of imaging or radiology. They say there's a scarcity of well-curated imaging data sets. And if there is high variance, the algorithm learns the data too well and they can fit to the noise. So in all these things, you kind of see what the issues with AI are, and you think about how quantum technologies could be incorporated. And we've seen from weeks before that fitting with noise kind of issues. We've seen QPSD, the specific noise reduction thing, and we've seen other areas of basically, minimizing these effects that we would normally be seeing, but helping with quantum. And the unfortunate thing with these things is that AI may create or worsen health inequities. So this is like DEI. So as it goes through data, it could be creating bias. And again, so this is that same paper, the 2020, and they say the increasing role of AI is big data. So big data for things that you couldn't use before. You're going to see these things like AI quantum neuroimaging, AI quantum neuroradiology, or if you prefer to call it, quantum AI neuroimaging, those types of things. And the potential benefits they say with, this is back in 2020, it says improve operational efficiency, increased access to genetic prediction, lower healthcare costs. And then in 2020, basically saying there's, delay in clinical applications with AI. So this paper in specific was O'Sullivan et al., developments in AI and machine learning for neuroimaging. So we're going to move on to the next paper here. So this is another AI paper. So this is Tripathi et al., advancements in neuroradiology, which is more diagnosis or prediction via artificial intelligence and machine learning. So the first is kind of what I went over before, but for those that don't know, as far as AI, is that it's sets of algorithms, and these sets of algorithms can do things, faster or more intelligently. And in specific, you have AI, and then the next level you have machine learning, and then next level you have deep learning. And in specific, it says machine learning is it's learning without specific rules to follow these programs. And then also basically desiring, even for better established public data sets, and then even more research. But in 2022, in two short years, and keep in mind neuroimaging goes into neuroradiology for diagnosis, is that they're saying due to machine learning, rich, multi-contrast, multi-dimensional, multimodal data. So that's a huge thing to be able to, these are brain images, so PET scans, MRI scans, these types of things as well. Now, they also say you could use it for lesion detection. So this is something that would take humans a really long time to do. And keep in mind, these are done on conventional hardware, all of it, if not, most of it. And segmentation interpretation. And also current algorithms are for interventional radiology, which is basic diagnosis, and to offer prognostic information, which is prediction. So if you have a certain, you scan the patient, and then due to AI and be able to look at it a lot more closely, you could say this patient's going to have this at this specific time, or at least a better approximation of that. And then you see these aberrant pictures. There's artifacts, and then that's another thing that AI can do, AI, ML, and or deep learning. And that, AI will give neuroradiologists augmented intelligence as well. So we can see on this slide, so I've shared this one before, and it's basically the hallmark to medical image processing. So the key ones that I'm going to go over basically is you have data acquisition, which is detection, sensing, and then you have reconstruction, which is algorithms, and that's part of image formation, like actually getting this raw data. And then image computing, you have enhancement, visualization, and then in management, I'm going to go over some communication as well. So the big ones, so all these are part of detection. And it's really important to basically detect raw data better up front, as opposed to having huge magnets and large instruments in these hospitals. And keep in mind, they only go up to, say, like 4 Tesla for a living being, but they can go up to 7 Tesla, or I think 10.5 for something that is a deceased patient. So there's limitations on using strong magnets. So these quantum diamond sensors seem to be a good path that a lot of this is on, is basically this is for shorter standoff. They're not always the best performance as far as just pure specs on their own, as far as signal to noise ratio. And keep in mind, those will likely get better. But the biggest thing in these two cases is this one, it's a rat's heart magnetic field, and the standoff distance is a lot closer, so it could beat off these. You have Squid Meg, which is superconducting temperatures, really cold. And then you have something called OPM. Those two right now perform better, but this one, it's basically a biocompatible diamond sitting on what, close to that surface. And then the one next to it is basically this in vitro brain sample. By the way, the one from Communication Physics is a very good article. It's got a lot of different studies. It's got, if you were to model a good paper, it'd be to basically that one. Now, this one to the right was an archive, so they got it out a little bit quicker. It's not peer reviewed, but it's the same kind of thing, is that they're showing distance here. And so for one probe, it's a stimulation, the other one records it. And because of the small standoff distances, you can record these magnetic vectors a lot stronger, even if it's not beating out other technologies. It's because it's close. Now, this one in specific, this APS physics, is very interesting because it uses a technique called mixing. And it says, you start off and you're going down with this, is basically all frequencies can be detected. So this is MIT, APS physics, I think some Chinese researchers as well. And that's useful, right, to have a sensor that can detect any frequency. And then this QPSD, I mentioned this before. So when you're looking at all of these things to help with the Alzheimer's disease, is basically you have to see where this would fit in with imaging. So this one, quantum phase sensitive detection, which is, they say, QPSD, for distortion-free audio sensing. So in that case, is that you have the diamond quantum sensor, and then they took, say, for instance, the Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, got rid of it. They're saying distortion-free. So it was in Nature Communications. It's a big paper. So that's worth checking out too. And how could that apply to other areas where we saw earlier in AI that it starts to look at the noise, so potentially start to apply these with, you know, these quantum sensors with existing AI approaches today, and you'll see likely a commensurate effect. And then, so this one, okay, so we're on the left here. So it's basically machine learning with a nano diamond ensemble. And it's basically saying it got better accuracy in this specific case. And then also on the right, signal amplification to decrease readout noise. And that's really big as well. And then, so on the left here, artificial neural network beyond Abbey Rayleigh. And so there's limitations that you can't go beyond using conventional classical methods. So this is this neural network that's dealing with separate photons, and it's set up in a certain way that, you know, you can see basically getting quantum advantage. You know, it's a very loose term, but basically using quantum techniques. And then also for the one on the right, scanning probe multimodal, this is a quantum sensor microscope. So you're starting to see microscopes, all these things kind of come to their fruition on the quantum edge. And a lot of times these things are paired photons, and then say, for instance, one goes off in the other one direction, the other one goes off in another one, and then they're still entangled while they go through different processes. So that entanglement is the quantum effect in some of these. So as far as, you know, having these, so for neuroimaging, you know, these diamond sensors, this is for battery application on the left here. And it's basically saying they use 2 diamond quantum sensors to, instead of all batteries, you can't tell within 10% charge accuracy. Now they say it gets closer to like 1%. And then that obviously would lead to better efficiencies. So in the medical field, you may be looking at something, you know, your wireless, predictive, non-invasive with these diamond quantum sensors as well. So CMOS is very popular. It's in the, you know, cameras of many phones, and they actually, it's a hybrid. So in this case, the main thing that they said is basically scalable, compact, you know, with diamond technologies. And then the one on the left is kind of what I was alluding to. Now, in this specific case, scientific reports, it's a Nature paper, is that they couldn't fix ghost imaging. However, they used a neural network to take this low resolution image into high res image here. And then in the future, the goal is basically to, you know, use other quantum technologies, hybrid technologies, or potentially even classical, to get a better initial noisy res. And you can start to see the AI and the quantum effects with a lot of these things, that it's a very commensurate kind of thing. Now the other, so as part of quantum imaging is quantum sensing, quantum ghost imaging, and then you have quantum subshot noise, and then quantum lithography, which isn't as well known. Now, I shared this last week, and it's just a very good picture because it shows a full rainbow circle here. And then once it goes through reference, you know, the bottom photon, this bottom lower half, is traveling in this direction, and the upper photon is traveling this one to the sample through the sample cell. Now, these 2 photons are still entangled while you go through it, so this one knows what that one's doing. And in specific, this subshot noise is used for most effectively for absorption spectroscopy, and we're talking UV vis, analytical chemistry kind of applications as well. Were there any questions? I see Peter was on here too. Does anybody have any questions? And then in specific, anything with AI and ML or DL, as far as, you know, how it could be used together with quantum? And then if not, feel free to come back on. But so we're going to continue here. So as far as reconstruction, so this is a big step. That's a big problem it's algorithm based. And MIT published this paper in 2020. So this is, many of you may know Seth Lloyd. So this is a Seth Lloyd paper. And, so as you see here is that medical imaging algorithms, and then you also have quantum algorithm zoo. And quantum algorithm zoo has exponential algorithms, quadratic, polynomial, super polynomial, all these types of things. And it's a 10-year effort. And I think the gentleman was hired after this long kind of devotion to getting all these quantum algorithms. So in general, quantum algorithms had to have quantum hardware to run on effectively. And the quantum hardware is still effectively, as if you look at quantum sensing, MRIs and lasers are technically quantum sensors. So that's the thing with these things, is we have this awesome potential, but it's waiting for the hardware. Now, the classic announcement, so this is a June 2nd announcement. It was after, a big Xanadu announcement that they had this awesome photonic computer. Is they're basically saying you could do all this awesome stuff on Amazon Braket. And it's a new platform. Now, the BMC paper is actually part of Springer Nature, so it's a bigger kind of thing. And this is a whole like CT scan images for COVID. Now, I've done other studies before, and I've communicated it. And basically, you need awesome quantum hardware to get awesome results. Okay, that's the main thing. So 2020 through 2022 so far. Even the IBM, there's an IBM Amgen paper based on rheumatoid arthritis and quantum kernels. It's not awesome just because the computer is not awesome yet. So going back to reconstruction, this company called QCware is important in this, and they'll pop up in other discussions too, is they say medical image classification via quantum neural networks. So it's just, we put these in our tool belts, and then when everything else is available, this paper is definitely worth looking at. And then here's the Amgen IBM paper. So Krunick et al. Quantum kernels for real world predictions based on electronic health records. And it gives you a good idea because they're using both computing, they're using simulation, quantum simulation, to get these results that they said as good, they're as good as conventional, if not better, which isn't a huge statement. That's just saying that, the certainty is not there. But the methods and analyses done in this specific paper and other ones too in this kind of time area is definitely worth looking at, because once the hardware comes, then your framework could be, pretty well developed. So this Q control, a lot of experts kind of support Q control, and they said 9,000 times improvement in quantum algorithmic. I want to say this is three to 6 months ago. So this is 2022. And it's just one of those things, is basically, there was an IBM paper I shared with some of you. It's basically this past week, they figured out better about algorithms to account for the error. It's called error correction, as opposed to just fixing everything. So it's a good thing. And then this can't be ignored. So this paper was published within a day of a Fidelity paper. And I think the other one was Fidelity and IonQ. So this Goldman Sachs QCware IonQ, proof of concepts that will revolutionize financial services, other industries. So these are kind of the players. So financial, Goldman Sachs, QCware, algorithms, IonQ, hardware. And everybody's, like I said, you'll see a ton of news on quantum computing hardware. It's just the kind of thing, it'll all kind of play out. Now, I don't know if a lot of you have seen this, but Cleveland Clinic, IBM launched a 10-year quantum computing partnership. So basically, there's other technologies involved, such as AI, I believe, and then high-end classical hardware. But you'll start to see this kind of interplay, and especially for neuroimaging as well, as there's just a lot of parts to this. To say you have the quantum sensors, and then are they hooked up to quantum computers? hybrid quantum computers? Are they, pure classical CPU, GPU, QPU? There's kind of factors at play. Now, this NSF paper, if you know me and you've been to any of my discussions or I go to yours, I always share it. They say 2023, there will be a practical quantum computer. Now, I asked a question at a QEDC meeting today, basically asking, does anybody know what this might look like? Because a practical quantum computer next year could open up some doors for sure. And then here's a Xanadu article. So this was in Nature, Nature. And basically this is the whole 36 microseconds and 9,000 years. So if you take away anything from this, is quantum computing is for very specific things these days. And even as it goes into medical, neuroimaging, neuroradiology, is that especially it needs to work really well for medical, because there can't be high error. So there may be some delay there as far as computing. And then you see Quantinuum basically saying that they closing it in on error correction as well. Now this was within the past week here. So this is about 8,000, I believe, for the quantum volume. So on the top here with Quantinuum. So the previous one was 4,000. The previous one to that is 2,000. So every so often months, they've been doubling it. And I think they plan to do similar types of things, like at least a 10x. I think they said 10x over a certain time. But basically, this is qubits over error. So either you can get higher on qubits or you can get lower on error. And I believe, especially with the one before this, they're getting lower on error, maybe getting up to like 13 or 19 qubits. That seems to be the trend, because the more qubits you have for, these are quantum bits for quantum computing, is basically the more, error. There's just inherent, basically more theoretical power, but more error. And then this QCI, they're basically saying 20x for quantum hardware. So if the whole quantum thing, let's just say IBM's summer school this year was called Error Correction School. So this is where you'd send your kids, is to correct error in quantum computers. Now, I've been alluding to this quantum computing for healthcare. This is by Rasool et al. And then this is in TechRxIP. This is basically an archive by IEEE, and it's very useful. I pulled off, I don't know, like 15 or 20 papers, and just going through this, and I've communicated this as well. And basically, yeah, the summary is that it's going through motions. There's reasons to do these things. It's just the hardware does not support getting awesome results. Now, getting into supercomputers, it says ATOS and IQM, 76% of global HPC data centers, so supercomputers, will have some aspect of quantum by the end of next year. Now, if you've joined other discussions, especially everybody's learning so much about quantum, I'm learning from other discussions too, is that there's so many hybrids. There's accelerators, there's CPU, GPU, QPU kind of thing, quantum processing units, as we're going to likely see as things heat up. And especially, I was attending a quantum economic development consortium call this morning. People are working on a lot of things. Now, going into communications, this is important because as you get into a lot more kind of complex data with ML, AI, especially as quantum starts to roll out here, is that it needs to be transmitted with patient safety in mind, or patient privacy in mind. So these things are still important, even just transmitting file to file securely. So that's the whole hope with quantum, is basically, quantum networking is the Navy Research Lab says that we will have a national quantum internet. And then the Fermi Lab in Argonne say that they transmitted both quantum and conventional data at the same time. And I believe it was over fiber optics. So it's very exciting. So Chicago's in this loop too. There's British Telecom and Toshiba overseas too. And they're basically keep upgrading their quantum network. I saw something at this QEDC this morning, is basically they're doing like a 7-mile whatever. Now, a lot of these are kilometers. I haven't seen anything over like say 130 in the US, but just imagine you know, if you're claiming you want the most secure hospital network, you know, best patient privacy, these types of things. And then Amazon and Harvard are getting in on this as well. So this was a May 4th article on the top, and this is basically saying the White House is going to start funding, and Q-Secure they published this article, or they published like a news posting within a week or two of this. Is basically, it's a very serious thing, especially for cybersecurity. Now, the good thing about this is that, as far as I know, you can defend against any quantum attack with, they're called post-quantum cryptography algorithms on like really good conventional hardware on our front. So that's a good thing, right? It's just saying to prepare. And then Sandbox AQ on the bottom here and Mount Sinai Health System, basically they're collaborating to, it's the same kind of thing. You'll see the title, Sandbox AQ and Mount Sinai Health System collaborate on data protection. So this is basically saying, you know, using quantum networking, quantum systems to, you know, prevent patient data from getting lost or stolen. And then Quantinium, they've been mentioned before, is they design your key on a quantum computer, and they say based on, I think, 9 or 10 things, it's the strongest quantum key. It's software based. And then NSA at the bottom there, you have quantum key distribution, which is more quantum based, and then quantum cryptography. And there's guidelines to, you know, setting up these algorithms so you don't get attacked by quantum. Now on the hardware end, so you have SK Telecom, Samsung, and ID Quantique, and this is a little chip called a quantum random number generator. And we were just discussing it this morning as far as how effective this is. And there's some debate on that. But I think the conclusion is that it does offer some additional benefit of protection, albeit it fits in these Samsung Galaxy phones. And then you also have Nist. So Nist has these their first 4 quantum algorithms. We're going to hear a lot more about them. They're basically saying, try them out, don't fully implement them. And then NSA, same kind of thing. And then at the bottom here is Q-Secure. And then they're basically the ones saying end-to-end post-quantum cybersecurity solution. And this was announced within a short period of time from the White House announcement on May 4th. Now QST, so this is where I think a lot of this stuff is going, is, you know, we're going back to healthcare here, is basically in neuroimaging, you know, they published this article, it's in Nature Portfolio, and I actually featured this, I think 2 weeks ago, but it's basically saying, you know, quantum sensors, quantum hardware, these types of things, everybody's on the lookout. How can we apply this to existing AI, ML, DL solutions? And, you know, basically trying to figure out the main benefit. So, and then RBC published this article. So this is kind of for everybody. So it says 30% of the world's data volume is for healthcare, and 36% of that will grow at a compound annual growth rate of 36%. So, and this might be an underestimate, I don't know, but it's basically saying once you have AI and ML, and then you're looking at huge data sets that humans can't make sense of, that they're determining this is a diagnosis, this is prediction, you know, or this is advanced prediction basically too. And then here's another thing. So the CHIPS Act, or the Chips and Science Act, this was big a couple weeks ago. And it's basically saying we're trying to keep all of this in America, in the US, as far as I know. And then, you know, because the first Silicon Valley and everything just went overseas. And then so you have some big players, you have Qualcomm, I'm trying to think who else, but you have these big players saying, oh, for $40 billion or whatever, you know, and this will affect quantum information sciences likely in the form of hardware, sensors, you know, communications, all these types of things, if the funding is there. Now, a lot of you may wonder, like, what's the background for all this and how did you get to know it? So Chemical Q Device publishes these little articles on LinkedIn, and this specific one goes from anything from, you know, chemical qubits to, you know, quantum networking, basically everything that will affect quantum neuroimaging, AI, these types of, or in specific, more quantum, they're online. So if you haven't seen those, you can see those. And then in specific, there's on the left there lots of discussions. And then the timeline, if you are just months and months or years behind on quantum, I think that this timeline is the most efficient way of catching up with quantum. It's got 235 sources. I also did like an hour and a quarter briefer on it too. So this is general quantum, and potential for medical, potential for everything too. And then in case you haven't caught it, so the quantum neuroimaging outline is online too. And this goes through as far as this analog devices article and saying, okay, these are the quantum technologies that could be used for sensing. These are the ones that could be used for algorithms, hardware, cybersecurity algorithms, these types of things too. Now, this quote I've shared a couple times, and it says, every once in a while, a new technology, an old problem, and a big idea turn into innovation. So if you were to look at all this with the constant stream of quantum technologies coming out, it's, you can put all these together and say, okay, what's the most effective way of going through all these things? Now, I'm going back to this. So you guys have probably seen this 6 times, but it's super important because it ties into medical imaging, neuroimaging, everything. And like when I said, like with the MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, is basically you don't want huge magnets, you want small magnets, and that's a trend, and I think they may be using AI to decrease these sizes of instruments. But up front, with these quantum diamond sensors, because you can put them so close to the patient, is that you're getting better data. So you'll likely see a lot of these things, and you'll see diamond sensors and things as well. Now, the chemical Q device mission statement is to improve neuroimaging techniques utilizing quantum technologies for better sensitivity, signal strength, and or resolution, leading to advanced prediction in neuroradiologies for Alzheimer's disease. Now, this includes quantum sensing, algorithms, computing, and specific for instruments such as MRI, PET, like PET scans, CT scans, neuroimaging techniques. And the main goal is to develop products for the market utilizing medical doctors collaborating and research laboratories. And then, so we're going to minimize this. And then I'd love to hear from everybody. So hopefully that was educational, and hopefully you can kind of pick up. I'm kind of interested as far as the AI, ML, DL kind of stuff in healthcare, what other people's experience has been with those as they grow, especially the past couple years in neuroimaging. So feel free to unmute. We have a bunch of people, I think, returning from last time. So Bahar, you can go ahead. And then, Kurt. And we got some new people here too.
Hey, Kevin. I'm not the expert of the field, neither in machine learning nor in quantum computing, of course. But I think everybody is now using machine learning, whether it's really necessary or it's just kind of fashion and cute in the industry. So almost everybody knows what to do with it. It's been like a plug and play industry. There's a few groups, as far as I know, that are really doing research in the mathematics behind it, but everybody's using, including, all the companies I know for semiconductor and imaging projects related to that.
Yeah, and that reflects these other papers that I read too, is basically it's using it responsibly. Sometimes, I don't know, if you get funding for an ML thing,
yeah,
not required.
Exactly.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then Ron?
So my understanding of AI in medicine seems to be squarely centered on diagnosis of images like MRIs, everything you've been talking about, even digital X-rays. They are using AI to find abnormalities and features that are hard to pull out of a pattern. I even interviewed with a new company who is going to try to be the AI company for radiologists. I think they quickly got overwhelmed by the size of the data that's involved and the amount of computational power they would need to do some things. And I believe they also probably ran into the fact there are some public databases out there, but you had mentioned one of the problems is collecting tagged data, which is what's needed for supervised learning. And in the medical industry, they like to work with supervised learning because that means some professional has tagged the data. In some cases, more than one professional, and it's just their comfort level. Another area that I've actually have been working with myself is using natural language processing, which is an area of machine learning to extend standard databases to add new attributes to information that that's out there, and isn't immediately apparent that the information is in there, but by using the NLP analysis, it's kind of similar to grading movie reviews. You're basically trying to figure out what the provider said and what their meaning was, and also pull out information about the patient that was left out. And so stuff like that has been very interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. I know, Ron, you've done QML stuff, and you said in specific QML will have both classical and quantum aspects to it. Could you comment a little bit as far as like how you see hybrids going forth with all this?
I mean, for the near term, it's going to be all hybrids. The QML. Now, I haven't worked directly with QML because it appears the only machine that is really working well in that area is D-Wave, and I haven't figured out how to get free tier support on that thing yet. So, but I've been studying QML algorithms, and they all kind of revolve around optimization enhancements. There are algorithms to speed up the training of data sets, or speed up the training of machine learning models by making the things like the back propagation go faster. There's also in your group here, we had an instance where machine learning, where quantum filtering, essentially quantum estimation, was used to pre-select molecules before they were fed to a machine learning stack. And this is a case where Q doesn't know anything about classical, and classical doesn't know anything about Q, but they're still working together in a hybrid environment. So I see that for the I mean, the volume on quantum devices has to get up there before that really starts becoming more of a player in some of these markets. It seems like only the biggest companies with the largest budgets are going to be able to take advantage of it currently.
And then, could you comment at all as far as like percent gains with any of the quantum stuff, quantum hybrids, QMLs that you've seen?
And again, there's been some presentations here in your group, and I have the number 6% improvement stuck in my head. Yeah. That number seems to have popped up a few times. And the one example is the guys that came here and just talked about how they are using the D-Wave machine to optimize routing sheets for a trucking company. And I want to say the trucking company was in India, so maybe it was India's version of UPS. And if you've got a $1 million gas burn every day, and you can improve your routes by 6%, that's a huge savings. So that's kind of where the business is going. Some of the other stuff was in and I'm going to use the word simulation, but I'm not talking about quantum simulation. I'm talking about using quantum to enhance simulators of various mechanical systems, like computational fluid dynamics for the aerospace industry and finite element analysis for all kinds of engineering structural stress testing. They're using quantum again as a front end to pre-screen or do better estimates on, or better guesses on algorithms that they want to try, that they want to feed into the simulator. And again, that was another one where it's, for some reason, it seems like it was 5 or 6% was the improvement they're getting. Now, if you're an auto manufacturer and you're making parts, you're making 10 million parts, 6% improvement in the weight of a part is a big deal. So again, big businesses, lots of budget. But I think for the short term, we're going to be doing hybrid, and that's just the way it's going to be until there's a huge jump.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. Now in the QEDC session this morning, I was going to bring up at the end, it's like, these are the, like they're from big companies like Accenture and so forth, is basically quantum has to find an application, and that a lot of people just get caught up with just the headlines and whatever, as opposed to like focusing your energy on, you know, say for instance, Alzheimer's is good because it has a defined diagnosis. It's not as hard to work with, I think, with some of the other, you know, diseases for mental. So yeah, it's just interesting because, you know, if you look at the old computing museums, like for conventional classical computing museums, those all are going away. Because everybody understands, for the most part, yeah, you have CPU, GPU, you know, you had transistors, or you still do, but they're just a lot smaller. But the moral of the story is basically all of this, and that's what a lot of these people at this meeting this morning have, is a specific application that you're working on. So is it sensing? Is it algorithms? Is it communications? Is it cybersecurity? Those types of things, because who knows, in 5 years, you know, I don't think we'll see as many meetups and all these types of things just for quantum, and you'll see so many applications, just like we have, like, you'll probably see more meetup groups for an iPhone than you would for a personal computer. So just a thought. I would like to see, go ahead, Ron, if you have some.
I was just going to follow up with that. You know, some in the history, there's a concept of the keystone application. The first commercially viable Windows-based machine allegedly is the Apple Lisa, and I bet there's a lot of people here don't even know what that is. And
I think a fair number probably do, but keep going.
Yeah, it was another one of my compiler experiences. As the guy, a guy by a company here in Chicago got hired to build the C compiler for the Lisa, and so I spent a few hours trying to get on their team, and everything looked like it was going well, and then Apple pulled the plug on them before we could do anything.
Yeah.
But we learned still learned a lot about compilers just by sifting through what they were doing. But the keystone application on the Lisa was the Paint program.
Oh.
Because now you have this machine, it's windowing based, it's mouse based. The keyboard is being depreciated. They want you to use the mouse, and you can draw pictures and all this crap. And you know, that's what people seem to think. That's what got Apple launched finally. I mean, Apple had computers before the Lisa. I don't think any of them really did very well, but at least the Lisa was sort of a proof of concept. People got excited about it, and then when their next generation was the first Macintoshes, they just, you know, kept going uphill again, keeping leveraging the whole windowing mouse based click and point type of thing. So that's been a recurring theme in the history of computers. There's always been some sort of, in the world of DOS and Windows, it was the spreadsheet, because the early DOS Windows machines were text-based. There was no windowing, no graphics, no nothing. But everybody had to have that computer because of the spreadsheet capability. Nobody ever had electronic spreadsheets before. So something in the quantum world will probably take that position any day now. So
yeah. Now we had a question here. So R is considered more data statistical centric compared to Python. Curious on the why, how. Ron or anybody else?
Oh, I think he's responding to a comment I dropped in the chat. The predominant machine learning language is clearly Python. R is also being used for machine learning. R is the modern descendant of a language called S, which S stood for statistics. And it was a language I got introduced to and played with at Bell Labs and had a lot of fun with it. Why they named this the descendant R, I'll never know. It's like, seems like they went backwards, but it allows you to write code in. If you're a statistician, you studied statistics, R will be very comfortable to you. And recently, there's been a push to include machine learning libraries in that thing. A lot of what goes on in machine learning is statistical based. I mean, some of the classification outputs are nothing more than normalized statistical predictions. So if that answers his question, I think that's what it was referring to.
Yeah, I'd like to see, is there anybody else we haven't heard from? So this could be quantum specific, neuroimaging, anything that's been covered. Feel free to unmute, and you can also come on as well.
Hey, Philip here. I came in maybe 15 or 20 minutes late. My apologies, life has been busy, but I try to attend these in real time when I can. When I cannot, I try to catch them, to watch them on YouTube. So I missed, I guess, most of the discourse specifically about neuroimaging and so on. But it's something that interests me very much. And in particular, I see that quantum science is now being applied to the study of consciousness, which is this big, huge philosophical problem that has plagued humankind for thousands of years, and we really have no idea how consciousness works. So I guess this neuroimaging power of quantum is potentially relevant to this area. And I've just put a link to a YouTube video that has intrigued me, that is based on a lot of research that is cited in the description of the video, that is titled "The Case for the Soul." And one of the possibilities discussed there hypothetically and tentatively is that it seems that the molecules of tryptophan, which is an amino acid, they seem to become entangled with each other through electrons somehow. I haven't really figured out the details yet, and they form these large topologically stable unities that may be something like the soul or something. And these tryptophan molecules, they have to do with the transfer of information. So there's a school of philosophy, panpsychism, which is a part of kind of Western academic philosophy that is not genetically related to any Oriental mysticism, that says, by way of a hypothesis, that it may be that consciousness is a universal property of matter, but at primitive levels of matter, it is primitive. Like it may consist of quantum properties of particles and things like that.
Yeah.
So this seems to be going in that direction. I wonder if you have any opinions. I'm not invested particularly, but it's interesting.
So kind of consciousness is like the end goal. We all want to think what I think. We all want to know what your spouse is thinking, anybody else, and it's thought to probably be the hardest. Now, as far as sensing goes, with these quantum sensors, the diamond quantum sensor, it's been shown that it can be placed closer than the is optically pumped magnetometry. So it sits closer to the patient to get better spikes, those types of things. So the best data, as far as I know of, is invasive surgery. So this is the whole Elon Musk, device where they literally drill a hole in your head, and then it sits on the brain, and then it can see single neuron detection. So it's thought that like an EEG or MEG for electric or magnetic is just like an average of all these neurons firing because it's not on the scalp. So it sounds like, well, number one, we don't want to do as much invasive, but we could do it on other species too, if dogs have thoughts, these types of things. But that's what it seems like is probably the single neuron stuff. And again, usually I don't think you can do it on all the surface of the head, and that's not even inside the brain. So that's the issue too. So it's like not approximations, but it's like, you can conclude that if this one compared to that one, and there's all things of like, I took cell signaling in college of this one compared to this, and we can deduce without having to have these sensors inside the brain. But yeah, I think, Phil, if single neuron detection starts to take off in a less invasive way, then you'll start to get to those things of, closer to consciousness. But it's always been thought like it's such a hard thing to do.
Yeah, there's specifically in this, the philosopher David Chalmers, an Australian guy who is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, a professor at NYU, who is the father of this panpsychism thing. His term is the hard problem of consciousness. And as I understand, it's the claim is that we can't really, not only don't we know the answer, but we don't really know what the answer might look like to the question of what consciousness is and so on.
Yeah,
so he tries to
go ahead.
So he tries his speculation. He says, I have no evidence for this, but this intuitively, this seems like a worthy hypothesis to test out in the long run. That it has to do with elementary particles and how they interact in the quantum realm.
Yeah, there's studies out there, and you've probably seen it on TV, where as far as they think something and then it types something on a computer screen if their hands don't work, if they're paraplegic. So they've done those sorts of things. So it's probably feel like a level, like of how much, and as far as like really, it'll get to the point like, do we really want to do this? Do we really want to know what everybody thinks? But there's probably some more experts out there, and I would look for the invasive surgeries. That's where I've seen most of that stuff, as far as it's actually a sensor sitting on the brain. Now, say for instance, another thing with the diamond quantum sensors is they're biocompatible as opposed to these plastic films. So that might be a huge thing.
Yeah, they have these, the brain sensors. They look like space helmets or something with lots of electrodes, lots of wires coming out of them. And the person has to sit between these huge magnetic coils that are supposed to block out all the interference.
Yeah. So what you're referring to is called Squid Meg. So this is
right, Squid.
Squids. And the best thing with squids is the best signal to noise. The worst thing with squids is actually, because it's so cold, it can't be placed right up against the scalp. Actually, I think it's like centimeters away at some distance. So it's the trend with all the these are all quantum sensors, by the way. Squid Meg is the highest signal to noise, but it's the shortest, or it's the longest standoff. And then you have OPM MEG, which is the thing everybody's crazed about in papers. And that has less signal to noise ratio, but a lot closer to scalp. And then the quantum diamond sensors is even less than OPM, but it's the standoff distance. It's in this last report, it was the closest. So I think the diamond quantum sensors, the big advantage is it's biocompatible. So they're talking about putting these inside cells, and there's all types of papers out there, what they plan to do with them.
Right.
Like nano, these aren't big. So these aren't like, like finger size. So.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again for this meetup, Kevin. You have a pretty unique group of people and unique talks. It's great. It's just wonderful to have this. I just wanted to say it again. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thanks again for coming, Philip. Now, anybody have anything AI, ML, DL, anything else with that?
I can just drop a question if you don't mind. Some people say in near future, all the medical fields that are basically very dependent on diagnosis will be obsolete because AI would do all the things. So for instance, most of the parts of dermatology or these things will disappear and will be done all by engineers, not doctors. I don't know if you agree with, or what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, same thing in chemistry lab, we were told, or not at that job, but I knew out in the news that, we would be replaced in the next 10 to 20 years. And that was on my mind as far as ML doing better, getting better results over time as it learned, as opposed to me, like a reaction. So in specific, so what was the question again?
Not exact question. I was thinking, what do you think, or can we expect a time that
a
good doctor will be replaced by just the machine?
Well, I think the percentage of relative doctors is still low. So I think a lot of them will be actually training, organizing, setting up AI experiments, all these types of things. But it could be like that, like you're eventually training a replacement. So that's a possibility. But I don't know, that's just my thought, is like, I hope I'm in that position, basically, is that I'm on that cutting edge with quantum and AI and these types of things. And I think there's still, so they say in medicine that your diagnosis or whatever AI concludes is just to support your patient's, physical clues, right? So it's actually not the main thing, it's to support that. Although I have read a paper and it said that sometimes with how good PET scans are, say for instance, is that it's so definitive that you hardly even need to see the patient at all. But it's one of those things also, they say, like, anytime you have a new technology, you'll get attrition, but then again, you'll get it'll require new people to keep it developing. So if you have like your up and to the right, then yes, I think you will have that. But at that same time, they'll say, okay, AI is doing all this with, big data, and we need to go bigger. And then we need somebody else to take a look at this. And so I say yes and no, but, over the course of time, it's with technology. I think it's actually been proven to show that even though we have technology replacing human jobs, over the course of time, new technology will create new jobs.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dave, you go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Just wanted to say thank you for doing this. And I really enjoyed what Philip said. Philip immediately extended where you're going with this to the panopulate solution. And I don't see it as much as knowing what people are thinking so much as to be able to perceive consciousness. And what Philip had said was, when we have, or my interpretation is, when we have low resolution or low density matter, unorganized matter, simple matter, it's going to have low consciousness. And when you have a high-end version, you have more. So if you were to apply that to the techniques you're describing, what that would suggest is our current awareness or the level that we will state consciousness can exist from our observations is about, and we're about to see more. And I too find that really intriguing and fascinating. And again, this is a testimony of the level of research and the level of organization that you put forth to to the minds that gather every Thursday night to your fan base. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, some things that come up is the signal to noise ratio. So for those who don't know, signal on the numerator and then noise in the denominator. So say, for instance, to get better data overall, and this is for consciousness or whatever, is that if you have, these quantum diamond sensors that get more signal, and then on the denominator, you have noise. And then we learned from two of these papers, there was one, I didn't include this week, but basically the other one is basically the MLK paper, I Have a Dream, Reducing the Noise. So, and we learned from a previous AI paper is basically, it could be so good that it's actually looking at the noise, and it's trying to determine things off the baseline. But say if you can make the noise a lot less, with QPSD, this quantum phase sensitive detection kind of thing, and then make the signal a lot greater, with quantum sensors or, quantum diamond sensors, is that now you have a bigger SNR. And then, so going back to your question, Bahar, is that it takes new people to, deal with the greater SNR for more applications as far as, maybe like a partial understanding of consciousness, of just looking at. And again, it's just looking at like a surface on the brain as opposed, the brain's a big thing, right? And the surface is a low, it's low surface area compared to the volume of the brain. So there's many things. So it's kind of like looking through all these things and saying like, okay, yeah, we've done that, or we can make it better. I think somebody else, maybe Ron, brought it up as far as like, okay, there's all this big data now, potentially there could be other things in sensing or computing, that can also help on the quantum end with that too, to get better data for consciousness. But I would look into it more, and I'll probably take a look at it too this week. Next week, is probably more AI and quantum stuff. Basically it's going to be AI quantum neuroimaging or AI quantum neuroradiology, which is more diagnosis. But yeah, I'm interested if we haven't heard from anybody here. Martin, Scott, Philip, the other Philip. Philip, with the you've got the cool background there. If you want to come on.
Yeah, I would just say thank you. I'm walking away from this meeting like many with new knowledge, and I've already pulled up. I've got the opportunity to study the R language that was spoken about on one of the independent learning platforms that I use. So it's always beneficial. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. And anybody else we haven't heard from, Scott or Martin? Go ahead, you can unmute or come on. And then any other last questions regarding Alzheimer's? So I shared a little bit this week is a paper found that it's autoimmune, or they believe based on their studies. So this is huge because we have other autoimmune diseases, and basically this amyloid beta, plaque is actually thought to be, it's antiseptic, which is thought to be good, but it's acting in a way against the neurons. So it's a very interesting thing. And obviously a lot of these things are tied in. It's not just like, from that one Nature graphic that I had from the beginning, is that these, signal certain other parts of the brain, microglia, into the neurons, and then you have tau, these types of things. So it's interesting as we learn more and more about what's going on to help, with prediction of future Alzheimer's patients.
Hey, Kevin, when you say it's autoimmune related, is that because of overactive autoimmune or non-functioning autoimmune?
I don't know. My guess is overactive. They just showed, these the amyloid beta tangles and these types of things. But I'll look into that paper, and Yeah, so basically, it just came across my feed. It's my neuroscience feed that I get, pretty much every day.
Well, I guess if it's overactive autoimmune, hopefully people are looking at existing drugs to test on that.
Yeah, good point. And then the huge thing, did you have something else?
Oh, and that actually might be an application where somebody uses quantum to look at all of the autoimmune suppressors that are out there and pick the best ones to stick into a machine learning stack to see how effective it would be. So I bet somebody's out there doing that.
Yeah, and with a lot of these drugs, I took neurochemistry. It's the blood-brain barrier that's the issue. So the most therapeutic drugs tend to be hydrophobic, and they have the hardest time getting over to actually heal. So that's just
okay.
the catch-22 with a lot of these. Awesome. So anybody else before we wrap up here? Martin or Scott? Appreciate everybody's, we've heard from everybody else. And then you could type it in the chat. And then be sure, so Philip posted in here the quantum case for the soul. And a lot of these things they continue to get looked at, because we'll say this probably went through with like the HPCs and the supercomputers. We think we can actually figure out consciousness, 100% or somewhere, something like that. And, how close can we get with quantum? And keep in mind, to do your own experiments, you have to actually do it on a real patient first, like your own trials. And you can't, as far as we know, you can't sense every part of the brain. It's just a surface. So you make deductions based on this and this and this. And then, it's going to take a while for it to be like a full thing, basically. Awesome. Well, this has been episode 50, and then I appreciate everybody, returning people as well. So like I said, next week is going to be, Alzheimer's again, and then in specific, quantum AI neuroimaging, and then quantum AI neuroradiology. One is more getting your picture, one is more the diagnosis. Yeah, I appreciate everybody coming on. Have a good rest of your Thursday. And